And we are back with the latest Big Mets update segment here as I'm currently recording this actively live 10:55 p.m. Eastern the night before for all my replay viewers. To my 100 plus concurrent viewers here in our post-game segment, as this is a late, depressing night in Mets land as the boys simply were not able to get the job done, dropping 2 out of 3 in Philly, the worst way possible, a gut-wrenching series loss where they had the absolute series in their grasp to win. They couldn't make it happen. I was there for game 2 of that 3-game set, heart-wrenching fashion in person at Citizens Bank Park, losing 6-4. Fast forward a day later, they lose 2-1, because imagine thinking the Mets are going to score runs on a Sunday day game. You might as well wave the white flag, because you know it's a death sentence from there. No, I'm not exaggerating. The Mets, for the vast majority, by far, of the past 3 months, have had only a couple games, I'd say 2 or so, in which they've scored more than 2 runs on a Sunday game. That is how bad the numbers have been. And what's equally as bad right now is the latest in Mets land, and is why we're having this Big Mets update segment, as there is major Francisco Lindor injury concern. Now, something that I wish we weren't talking about is what we now need to talk about to an absolute T. We're going to get into these latest comments here in a second, but Lindor, who missed Game 2 of that 3-game set for Luisangel Acuna to make his MLB debut. We're going to expand on what has looked so great about Acuna as of late and why Mets fans need to be excited about him. A bit on Paul Blackburn and on Jett Williams. A huge update there on him in a second that we're going to get into. But before I do, folks, let's talk about the man of the hour, Mr. Smile himself, and Francisco Lindor, who has now been dealing with that back issue that we all know very well. It first started what we saw with the naked eye, at least was a couple games ago that we saw, as he slid at the second base bag, did not slide in properly there, stumbled and got caught between second and third and got pulled an inning later there as a defensive replacement in the series finale for the Mets of their previous matchup. Fast forward now for this Phillies series, we see them, I shouldn't say that. That was game 1 of the Phillies series where the Mets won 11-4. That's when Lindor had that unfortunate hiccup. Missed game 2. Game 3, we saw Lindor's in the starting lineup. He shot shortstop. We're ecstatic. We're excited. Caution, how are you? Happy to have you in here. As always, my man, Alan, Priest, Rebecca, Ethan, everyone watching live on a replay, thank you all so much for taking the time to smash a like and subscribe on as we break down all the latest in Mets land as we typically do. The same way we're typically breaking down here the latest on Lindor, because after starting the ball game and getting a leadoff hit, all Lindor had to do was step on that first base bag to know that his night was done. Let's hear the latest on Francisco Lindor, his concern level that we're going to break down in a second, and how this season, with that question, completely falls on the shoulders of Mr. Smile. No matter how much we love it or hate it, that is the reality, and it's fitting that Lindor is having back issues because it makes sense for a guy that's been carrying the Mets the entire way, pretty much all year long after the first month and a half of the season. This is what Lindor had to say on all the latest.
Just felt like my back just got a little weak as I took a couple of steps towards first base, and yeah, just didn't feel comfortable to continue to push it. No, in the swing I felt fine. I actually took a swing, I fouled one off, and it felt good. That's what gave me extra confidence. As soon as I swung and followed the ball off, and I regathered myself, I felt like I was in a good spot. And when I hit the ball, and I took a couple of steps out of the box, didn't feel how I wanted to feel. I actually ran faster in practice than I did in going from home to first today, and just didn't work out. So we're going to evaluate it tomorrow and see where we go.
Given that it got worse after a brief stretch of real baseball activity in a game, what does that mean about moving forward?
No, we're going to have to reevaluate tomorrow, do some images, and see if there's anything concerning in there. If not, then we continue to try to get better. And the goal is to be available as many times as I can in this last 14, 15 games that we have left. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
You'll get an MRI tomorrow.
Yeah.
Lindor says he's been dealing with the pain for a while. In this specifically, Lindor goes on to break down how he's been basically managing this the past week and a half, 2 weeks, and as a player and playing at the level that he does, naturally you're going to have to deal with your bumps and bruises and your ailments on the day-to-day. We all know this when it comes to Francisco Lindor, and it comes for any player, and that's why we appreciate them so much when they play at such an elite level for as long as they did. Regardless of that fact, we see here that Lindor has not only been dealing with the ailment of the past couple of weeks, which which basically tells you that, yes, the Mets have known about this to a degree, and that very well factored into why they called up Acuna. Now, they did not play Acuna the night before he was called up, so I don't believe it was as strict as like, oh, Lindor just got hurt, that's why we're calling up Acuna. I firmly believe the Mets were always going to be calling up Acuna, but I think it goes in hand with their previous knowledge of Lindor's kind of back flare-ups that weren't in the public eye up until the past couple days now. And given this, Lindor did make note that, he's feeling good, he was starting to feel better, and that is what warranted him to be in the starting lineup today, trying to get out there. But as soon as he made contact with that first base bag, he felt it flare up right away. So they're going to go from there. They're going to get the MRI that we may find out results by now, by the time that you watch this video. And depending on those MRI results, that dictates so much, as we know, with this Mets team and Francisco Lindor. But fingers crossed, knocking on wood, if there's nothing serious there, and this is still a day-to-day thing, it is vital for this Mets team to make sure that they play it safe with Frankie, while also understanding the ramifications of not having him in your lineup. This is such a damned if you do, a damned if you don't type situation for the Mets, because with just a couple weeks left on the season, yes, you don't want to push your luck with Francisco Lindor and potentially make an injury that's right now not great, worse, but you also don't want to put yourself in a situation where if you say, hey, we're not going to play you for an entire series, that may entirely make or break your season right there. I know you're going to say, Wardy, that season is not alone what defines the Mets. There are so many other series losses with Lindor active in them where you could point to. Yes, that is correct, but for the Mets to not pounce and to not take advantage when they had a 4-0 lead in Game 2 without Lindor, fast forward a game later, a 1-run lead, I know it's minuscule, but still, when Lindor had the leadoff hit and the Mets finally got a huge home run heroic by Tyrone Taylor in the 8th inning, for them to not take advantage without Francisco Lindor in the lineup is what stings so much, because the more Lindor is gone, the less likely the Mets are going to get anywhere they want to be this year, as they currently stand still in that third wildcard spot at the time of recording this segment, as you guys and gals can see right here. Still tying that third spot with Atlanta after Atlanta got cooked in the 9th inning. Thank you, Raisel Iglesias, for serving up batting practice. We appreciate that. The Arizona Diamondbacks and the San Diego Padres continue to control their own destiny as well. But this Mets team, what are they trying to do? They are trying to make sure that Mr. Smile and Francisco Lindor is healthy, is okay, and will be with them for the remainder of the year. Now, one thing that I definitely see that is not a good thing when we look at Francisco Lindor is that he's a guy that's a gamer. He's one of those guys that absolutely wants to make sure that he's in here no matter what. Last year, Lindor had similar numbers and the team sucked. Okay, here's the thing. Lindor did not have similar numbers at all in comparison to last year. You have to look far beyond just the RBIs and what you're getting there. Yes, there's similarities in the home runs and the RBIs, but the context of how good Lindor has been the past 3 months cannot be understated. He has been the most valuable player in the National League. Lindor, as good as he was last year, was not performing at a value level the same way that he is this year. There has been a huge jump in Lindor's overall production this season, from not only the standpoint of offense, but also defense staying fantastic, and the Mets and Lindor staying afloat, as a true leader in this clubhouse. He really stepped up and showcased himself as that go-to guy when the Jorge Lopez situation happened, and they Sorry, guys, just give me 1 second. I had to attend to something off air here. But what I got to tell you on the case here of Francisco Lindor, the Mets need him. And if they don't have him, how can we feel confident? My question to each and every one of you watching this on replay especially, and my live viewers too, is do you think the Mets still have a chance to make playoffs if Francisco Lindor misses more than, say, a game? If he misses a series? If he misses, God forbid, a week? If any of these things happen, do you have a confidence level? If so, please let me know in the comments down below. Because when you have a guy with roughly 90 RBIs this season, hitting out the clip he's been hitting, the electric defense, the clutch hitting with runners in scoring position, the home run heroics when the Mets have needed most, including that huge home run there against the Toronto Blue Jays to salvage that series and make sure you still won it, where it was that close to being the other way around there for a horrendous series in Toronto. There have been endless things that Mr. Smile has done so brilliantly for this Mets team this year, and it'll be nothing short of a damn shame if the reason why the Mets' demise happens this year is all thanks to this injury, because the Mets could not have their most valuable guy when they need him down the stretch stretch in the final couple weeks when they need him most. So Francisco Lindor, we'll find out the latest on the imaging. He doesn't seem too down in the dumps from what we see, but he's also a complete professional, and he's a guy that knows how to handle each and every one of these situations. So that's all I will leave you with the Francisco Lindor information for now. Now to get from there, folks, let's get into a bit more on the latest on these big Mets updates, because we not only have Francisco Lindor, we also have Luisangel Acuna, Jett Williams, and Paul Blackburn. And let's start here with Luisangel Acuna. I had the privilege of seeing Luisangel Acuna have his MLB debut and his person there in Philly at Citizens Bank Park. Acuna had himself a couple hits, some electrifying defense, and even had himself a stolen base, or at least he got to second base on a pass ball. Either way, Acuna looked brilliant in his debut, and then after coming in there after one inning after Lindor had a hit and then exited the game, touching that first base bag, telling him, I can't stay in this ball game, Acuna did strike out a bunch of times. However, he did have some great defense, including a gorgeous backhanded flip there for a nice toss to second base to Iglesias to get the force out there in a situation. Acuna looks comfortable, confident, and he could be that kind of electrifying jolt of a young player that could help propel this Mets team in the absence of Francisco Lindor should he continue to miss time. Not that this Acuna replacing Lindor solves anything, because it truly does not. Night and day difference between the two players. It doesn't change the fact that at least that Acuna has been positive. It definitely surprised me a little bit. Honestly, in his debut, I thought he was going to be a lot more free swinging, like we saw in his past game where the Mets lost 2-1 the series finale against the Phillies. No less, very pleasantly surprised with the startup of Luisangel Acuna in his MLB career. Privileged and honored to be there at his debut. Should Luisangel Acuna end up having a prosperous career with the Mets or wherever he may be throughout his career, it'll be nice to know, saying that, yeah, I was there for him to make his debut. That was pretty cool. That's what I got to say about that. So Luisangel Acuna, Francisco Lindor, 1 out, 1 in. Not the way that we want to see this happen by any stretch, but sadly, that is the current reality until we find out the latest stats on Lindor, on if he's going to miss any continued playing time, or if this is going to be one of those things that they just continue to take day by day should imaging come back negative. What is a positive, however, that is Jett Williams, who missed basically the entire season for the most part there with a wrist injury. They ended up needing surgery on. Jett Williams, who's been ramping up over the past month, over the past couple weeks, has been promoted to the AAA level. Yes, Jett Williams, who is fully expected to play at the AAA level basically the majority of the season there for Syracuse, and potentially be considered as a late September call by the Mets. Far from it now, but Jett, who is still ramping his way back, hasn't put up great production whatsoever because, mind you, he missed the majority of the season with that wrist injury, and he's just trying to get back afloat in the groove of things. And knowing that, the season's basically over, that there isn't much else to be had here, especially with Syracuse and their playoff stats, these kind of things, made sense why they're doing the promotion just for the remainder of the time that they have there at the minor league level. So Jett Williams will get a taste there at AAA before calling it quits for the 2024 calendar minor league season. And we will see Jett Williams, one of the Mets' top offensive prospects, one of the Mets' overall top prospects that we see in that middle infield, and can play some outfield should the Mets want to consider the idea, even though I'm sure it isn't going to happen all that much. Jett Williams, who I had the privilege and pleasure of meeting and interviewing a year and a half ago at spring training, he has absolutely done great things in the minors since then. It's been a tough year for him and a tough year for a lot of Mets batters that dealt with injuries in the minor leagues. Ryan Mauricio, not the minor league level, but another guy that's kind of in that mix, started the year with injuries, been out all year. Drew Gilbert missed the majority that we saw with a hamstring injury. Thankfully, he's been back for the past month and a half or so, and that continues from there. What I'm trying to get at, though, is Jett Williams. Congratulations to him on the promotion. We'll see how he looks for the remaining games that they have there at the minor league level there at Syracuse, and we'll go from there for Jett. So that's the latest on the following three players. Now, last but not least, before we get out of here, let me inform you on Paul Blackburn. As many of you guys heard yesterday, yes, Paul Blackburn has a very bizarre situation going on. In a very Metsian fashion, Paul Blackburn is down with injury because he's dealing with a slight leak in his spine. He's dealing with some spinal fluid leakage going on, which is as bizarre to say as I'm still trying to fathom and articulate to break down for you at the moment. He does not have a set timetable. However, it's not overly concerning according to the Mets, but one of those things that's just so bizarre that it's happened to begin with. Blackburn, who the Mets acquired at the trade deadline, had some serviceable outings for the Mets, has also had some not so good outings for the Mets. It is now Tyler McGill's job to lose for the remaining couple weeks of the season, as Blackburn, should he return to the Mets, probably will not be up until right around the season's end, barring changes, as he will still need to probably ramp up a little bit of rehab and make sure that back is okay. We'll see if Paul returns at all in the next week or so. Right now, no timetable on the return. There is a timetable, however, on Mr. Kodai Senga. Senga, who looks like he can return the Mets as soon as September 25th, might be able to do exactly that, folks. The Mets are just 10 days away from potentially getting their ace and Kodai back on the bump here in this rotation. Even if it's in limited outings and limited innings, it may still happen. Everything is lining in that direction, according to David Stearns, Carlos Mendoza, and Kodai himself. And that would be against the same team that he faced and it struck out 9 against before faltering with a injury again this season. And that is the Atlanta Braves in hot Atlanta, and what very well could make or break the Mets making playoffs this season in their final matchup against the Braves this year. That huge 3-game set before their final series against the Brewers to end the regular season. The Mets are going to need as many weapons and as much talent as possible. Kodai Senga is completely in line still to make that happen. So with that being said, everybody, that is the latest updates of Metsland. I want to thank you all so much for watching and listening, whether it was live or on replay. I greatly appreciate that. If you guys can make sure to leave us a review wherever you get your audio podcast for all of our post-game coverage there, not just on YouTube and on X, where we have thousands every single night, but now we're on Spotify, Apple, Google, you name it. Check us out for all your Mets post-game needs there as well. Leave a 5-star review if you enjoy the audio-only content, and make sure you're chiming into all the latest content here on the WardyNYM YouTube platform, as we're inching oh so close to 27,000 subscribers. Thank you all so much for the endless support. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below and your biggest takeaways from all the latest updates of Metsland, as they are now set to kick off their 3-game set against the Washington Nationals. And all I got to say is, boys, get the job done. Regardless on Lindor, control your destiny. Even with the great young talent that the Nationals have, this is a series you have to win, and you really need to go and try to sweep these guys. I know it's far from easy. Best to take 2 out of 3, but seriously, boys, you cannot slump with the bats in this homestand. It is do or die. That's what I'll leave you with, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. Love you all to death no matter what. As always, no matter what, let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.